What's going on, golf addicts? It is the Masters. It is the Masters DFS show. We are the Tour Junkies. You just heard Charles Howell III, our friend, fellow Augusta native, just like us. Big difference between us and him, though, is he's made $1 bajillion playing golf, and he's appearing in like his 12th Masters. And so great to hear from our buddy CH3, who, could have been you, Pat. You guys grew up together, hitting golf balls on the range at Augusta Country Club, right next to each other. Playing golf together, and here you are, and here he is.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities here. Here I am about to crack open a little Wild Leap. Let me get that right. IPA here.
There we go.
And a lot of Charles is such a great guy, but we'd have nothing in common other than we're from the same place, and we grew up in the same club.
You like golf. There you go. Yeah. Charles was fantastic. If you are – so this is the DFS podcast. We have a betting podcast preview for the Masters out as well. And the first part of that episode is going to be the same Charles Howell interview that you just heard. We're putting that same clip in both in case some people only listen to one or the other. Great content there. Charles giving us a ton of thoughts about how he thinks the golf course is going to play, what he knows about Augusta, his thoughts. He even threw out some names. That's the great thing about Charles. He's like a college professor with tenure. He can say and do whatever he wants. Like there are plenty of players who are afraid to come on here and like maybe answer a question that would help people bet better on golf, or maybe mention a name that they like because they're scared. Charles is like, dude, I've been doing this, 25 years. I think I'm good. Like he's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. He is exactly like a tenured professor. And I like that. He can just say whatever he wants, and it's just, comes out, and he doesn't really care, and gives us some good information. He even gave us picks and all that kind of stuff. It's just really cool. So love hearing from Charles, great friend of the podcast.
100%. Why don't you talk about, we all know Augusta National, okay? We all know how this golf course tends to set up, although not in November. By the way, we should mention we're recording this on Saturday afternoon in Augusta, Georgia. Looking forward to getting this out early for everybody. Hope you're enjoying it. So, Pat, you normally do the course breakdown. Talk through, based on what Charles has said, how you expect to see Augusta National play and what type of play it will be rewarding.
Well, if you listen to Charles, I think one of the biggest things that he talked about was that he thought the course would play a lot softer. We're expecting a little bit of rain next week. I think that is interesting. So that is certainly going to play into the hands of the longer hitter. We're going to, Bryson is the favorite. Some of these longer hitters are all up there, Rory, all of that. So I think that's definitely one key that you're going to see. Now, it's played like that in the spring too. So it's not like, that's not how it typically sets up. But, a softer course, will be interesting to see. You could also see, again, I think that one of the things I thought was interesting that you talked about was kind of the Bermuda still was a little bit under the ryegrass that we, that's not any – by the time you get to April, that ryegrass is taken over and it's established in there, whereas now it's not as established as we see, typically in the spring, and that could create some problems as far as lies are concerned. And, he talked about, wedge shots in the 15 or 13 could be a little bit more difficult because you're thinking about that Bermuda underneath the rye. So that's interesting to me as well. The greens, though, just like always, they're going to be rolling super quick. They're bent grass greens. They're pure. So I think that will play just like it always does at Augusta National. And then you're just going to have to, you're going to have to be able to get up and down. Here's the thing with the National. If you've ever walked the course, which we've done several times, you can't really tell until you're on that course what these green surfaces are like and what the contours are like. You got to be able to miss these greens in the right spots if you do miss them. You got to put yourself in a good position. You can't be above the hole if you do hit the green. It's going to make for a tough, slopey putt. You got to be either hole high or below the hole almost, every hole out here. So I think that's something that we're going to pay attention to. But I think the softness of the course and the greens, really the biggest things that I thought Charles talked about as far as the course is concerned. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's the key. And the temperatures that we're looking to see as of now are much warmer, 70s and even low 80s, which is not uncommon in November in Augusta. Sometimes it could, Augusta weather is weird. I'll tell you that. So I would say to keep paying attention to it. And like Charles said, the warmer temperatures bring more of the field into it, is what he was saying. Shorter hitters, whatever, it brings more people into it. Still going to play long, but I think if we see the 70s and 80s, temperatures, it's not going to play as different as we have seen in a lot of years past in April. But it will play longer, at least somewhat, because of the softer fairways. And yes, they may have sub-air under there and they can suck a little moisture out, but they have to keep them watered because of what you mentioned, the ryegrass and the Bermuda. They have to keep them wet. Charles mentioned that. So you're just not going to see a ton of roll out there in the fairways. But I do think the greens and around those greens are going to play pretty similar to what we've seen in April. So, I think that's key. He talked about the first timer, and he talked about how this year without patrons, if anything, it helps a first timer. We haven't seen a first timer win since the very first Masters, and Fuzzy Zoeller was the most recent one, I believe, back in the 80s, maybe late 70s.
77, actually.
77.
Because I think it was the year I was born.
So, he talked about the first timers, and he said, without patrons, there's definitely an edge there to some extent. And I think we've seen that. We saw that at the PGA with Colin Morikawa, these young guys coming out and doing their thing. So I do think that's interesting. I think, and there's a really strong group of first timers in this field. I mean, just let me read you some names of first timers here. Matt Wolff, Scotty Scheffler, JT Poston, Colin Morikawa, Jason Kochrack, Max Homa, Lonzo Griffin, Tyler Duncan, Cameron Champ, Eric Van Rooyen, Abraham Answer, Sung Kang, Sung J.M., Victor Perez, Sebastian Munoz, Nick Taylor, CT Pan. Those, I missed a few, but those are some really good names that are playing really well right now. And he talked specifically about the first timers and about how the patronless fairways may take a little bit of the intimidation factor out. Now, we also know that there is so much local knowledge to playing these courses and knowing these greens and knowing which side you can miss on, and on certain pin locations, you got to be here, you can't be here. Even Tiger just last year, I think, said he learns something new every time he comes out there, and he kind of files it away. So it's not that it's not that it puts a first timer on a level playing field, but I think it definitely, if there's going to be a year, I feel like they're going to break the first time. They could break the first timer curse, considering the strength of the first timers in this field. And that factor, it's possible. Now, we also know.
I mean, it's 2020. It's 2020. Something like that's probably going to
either
happen.
that or Sandy Lyle's going to win, because as we speak right now, Dowie Vanderwalt is leading the Houston Open on a Saturday afternoon. We just had Brian Gay and Stuart Sink win golf tournaments in the fall. It would be very 2020 for freaking Sandy Lyle to. I don't know. I don't know how that could happen, but also didn't think we'd have a Masters in November. Charles thinks a winning score around 12 under. That's kind of what he thinks. 12 under. I think Tiger won last year at 13. Thought that was interesting. He talked about some specific players, which we can maybe get into as we start looking at names. But I think overall, that's kind of what I think that's what he gave us on the golf course. Now, we look at something called data golf sometimes, and data golf has this tool that shows course history and how much it matters per course. And you can look up any course they play worldwide, and data golf, based on the data, will tell you how important course history is. And Augusta National ranks numero uno. So we all know
not surprising
that course history at Augusta is a big, big deal. So that's obviously something we're going to look at. And I do think with it being warmer temperatures, the course history keeps some of its weight. If it were going to be really cold in November, you lose a little. It becomes a little less predictable. But I do think course history is going to matter just as much as basically any other Masters year to me. Obviously, recent form. Let's look at some trends. I want to talk through some trends real quick, Pat, before we start getting into names and stuff like that. 9 of your last 10 winners were under the age 40. 8 of the last 10 were ranked in the world's top 20. 7 of the last 10 have played in at least 3 Masters. 9 of the last 10 have posted a top 30 at Augusta National. 10 of the last 10 have posted a top 10 earlier in the season. So, and no world number ones have won in the last 10 years. So sorry to you, Dustin Johnson, if he retains that after this week at Houston. So very, very interesting trends. Augusta tends to have these trends year in and year out. It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. I will mention as well, we have 95 players in the field this week. Actually, there may be less because I think there are a couple that were listed that aren't playing. But one to note is Joaquin Neiman is out due to COVID, so he will not be playing. Hate it for that guy. I mean, he obviously has played here before because he won the Latin American Amateur, but this would be his first pro start at the Masters. So really sucks for him. And anyway. Yeah. Also, top 50 in ties will make the cut this week. Or if you're within 10 of the leader, which is something the Masters has done for a good while. So I think that's also something to make sure you pay attention to as well. It is not T65 in ties like we see at most tour events, or T70, which is what I believe we had at the U.S. Open or the PGA. I can't remember which one. But anyway, so I think that's something that we'll need to look at as well. Agree with you so much on course history. I think this is just the Masters is just one of those tournaments that's you just got to pay attention to that. I mean, we see guys like going back to your Freddie Couples, your Phil Mickelsons, those kind of guys, just every year in and year out. I mean, I think Couples made like something like 15 straight cuts here or something. I don't know what it was, but what other stats though are you looking at?
Something to think about there is, as we talk about DFS, I did some research over the last 5 years versus so players who made the cut versus total number of players in the field. And over the last 5 years, on average, 63% of the field plays the weekend, which is, a little higher than you're typically used to seeing on the PGA Tour rotation with 140 players, 144 sometimes in a cut event where top 65 and ties get in. It's usually around that 50%, 52, 53% number. So you got more guys making the cut on average at the Masters due to those cut rules, due to the smaller field, which is huge for DFS. So as we get into stats, which, by the way, all of our stats that we're going to bring up today, course history, recent form, stats, if you want to run optimizers for lineup building, if you want to look at ownership projections, if you want to run models, simulations, all that good stuff, fantasynational.com is where we go to get it, and it's where we've gone for the last 4 years. And now they're getting all their data straight from CDW, partnered with the PGA Tour and ShotLink data. So it's, that the data is accurate. There are other sites out there, okay, that are not getting their data from CDW, and it's not certified. Fantasy National is now doing that for both the PGA Tour and Korn Ferry Tour. So you need to sign up for Fantasy National if you're into golf betting, if you're into DFS, if you're into anything involving handicapping golf tournaments across the world. FantasyNational.com is where it's at. If you go to FantasyNational.com/TJ or use Tour Junkies in the where'd you hear about us section when you sign up, you do get a 20% off subscription. You can choose a weekly, monthly, or annual subscription at Fantasy National. So you can try it out. If you love it, great. If you like it, if you try it out for a week or a month and you want to up it to the year, you still get to keep the 20% off discount as long as you put in FantasyNational.com/TJ. Again, we've been using them for years. So any kind of stats we pull out on this show or any other show you listen to, it's all coming from Fantasy National. So aside from the stats, I think when it comes to DFS, and we see this all the time with the Masters specifically, limited number of players. So I took this field and I counted 84 players that I think have a semblance of a chance of making the cut. Okay, so 84 out of your 95, whatever. On average, the number of players that have made the cut over the last 5 years is around 57. 57 players make the cut. And I think there are 84 that have a potential to make the cut. So if you're talking about, I think contest selection is important every week, but it's especially important this week in DFS because you have to understand the variance in these lineups and the number of entries you got coming in. The most important thing is having ownership leverage to me. If we're talking DFS, you got to have places in your lineups where you have leverage. You can eat some chalk. We're going to talk about Bryson. We're going to talk about some other names that we project to be pretty chalky. You can do that. but you better have plenty of leverage in your lineups, especially depending on the contest you're playing in, because so many of these guys are going to make the cut. And really and truly, everybody's really picking from 84 players, in my opinion. People are picking from 84 players, and 55 or 57 of those are going to make the cut. So the number of 6 of 6 lineups is going to be through the roof. It's going to be 20% maybe. It's going to be higher than 20% maybe that are going to be 6 of 6. And most GPPs or tournaments on DraftKings are going to pay out to only the top 20%. So a 6 of 6 is not even guaranteed to cash in the Masters, more than likely, unless we just see a ton of the chalk bomb. So I think ownership is number one. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your key stats outside of ownership?
Yeah, I agree with you on ownership. And I think for all the reasons that you just said, you really drilled that down, going with some math there. I was about to bring my calculator out and see like some percentages there. That's
bringing
good
the
stuff.
A game. Bringing the A game.
Good stuff, DB. Yeah, but I agree. You're definitely getting a higher number that make the cut because of the smaller field and everything else. I wouldn't treat this like a WGC event, no cut type event, but I still think you're going to have to still have a very solid 6 of 6 lineup to cash. I think you're certainly going to have the winner. But as far as stats are concerned, for me, I'm going to look at strokes gained off the tee. Approach is certainly going to be my number one stat that I'm looking at. I just talked about it earlier. This is an approach shot golf course. Even if you do miss the fairways, the rough it and all that thick, and you've got to hit these greens in the right spot in order to score. It's just that simple. We mentioned history, course form as well. I'm going to look at strokes gained around the green a little bit, just because I do think you have to have a very solid scrambling, game for this course. We look at it every year. A guy like Patrick Reed winning. He's a fantastic scrambler. Phil Mickelson, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to be something that's important as well. And then I'll look at some long-term form as far as bent grass greens are concerned. I want to know the guys that putt well on bent traditionally. So that will certainly be a stat. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the Masters.
Yep, agree on the bent grass. Always going to look at that. Agree on around the green, looking there. Agree on approach. That's probably my number one weighted stat as well. I'm looking at strokes gained off the tee as well. Driving distance. I do think this is a distance course. I think that's where the edge is off the tee, as it is every week. But I do think Augusta National is a distance course, without a doubt. And kind of what plays into that is par 5 scoring. You don't have to score on the par 5s by getting there in 2 on all of them. Charles talked about that as well. He talked about the fact that he can get to these in 2, but there are guys like Zach Johnson, Webb Simpson, whoever that are going to wedge it to death and maybe hit a couple of them in 2, but have that really good short game that gets them up and down and make a ton of birdies. But those are kind of the stats I'm looking at as well. It's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and this is not covered in the portion of the interview we published with Charles, but we also recorded a separate deal with Charles that's going to come out much later. We asked Charles, and we're going to ask a couple other tour pros that we know and caddies, a series of questions that people like us tend to ponder, sometimes overthink around stats or predicting golf. And one of the ones we talked about was putting surfaces. And one of the things that Charles said is that bent putting surfaces, which is what you have at Augusta, really tend to kind of, if you have the great putters over here and the really crappy putters over here and the margin is wide, that bent grass greens as pure as Augusta National tend to narrow that gap a little bit. So it makes the great putters not necessarily have as much of an edge over the really sorry putters, because bent is pure. You don't have to worry about reading a ton of grain like you do in Bermuda. You don't have to be as comfortable with some of the weird variability of a POA. They're just pure. They're pure. Now, Augusta National's bent grass greens, having caddied there for 2 years myself, I can tell you that there are still some weird things about those bent grass greens. They do things that, they shouldn't do. They break, they break uphill, or they break left when you swear they're going to break right. A lot of that is due to the layout of the golf course, not necessarily the grass, but there are some intricacy things to know. But if you got a guy who's got some experience at Augusta, but over time he's been a really sucky bent grass putter, but he's got an okay experience at Augusta, I don't care. I'm good with that. I'm not going to throw him out because he's a terrible bent grass putter. So I do think I wanted to make that distinction as it comes to bent grass.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I thought that was an interesting thing that Charles talked about when we did that recording was that, it does kind of bring – and it makes sense, though, if you got these pure greens that, are just – you're not going to get these crazy bounces like you get with POA or certain kind of graininess like you get with the Bermuda. I mean, it does make sense. But I still want to see, the guys that at least have shown some long-term form on bent grass. But you're right. I'm not going to throw out a guy just because I may not see that.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, we're here to talk about DraftKings, and we got to let everybody know that DraftKings has the Millie Maker this week, the $1 million top prize. They've got a couple of them, actually, but the big one, the $20 entry, $1 million top prize contest on DraftKings is where you need to be. And they're the leader in daily fantasy action. And they've been the leader in golf daily fantasy since they started. We absolutely love it. It's easy. You just pick your 6 golfers, stay under the salary cap, submit your lineup before the tournament tees off on Thursday, sit back, follow the action. And obviously, the more red numbers on the leaderboard, the closer you are to winning some green and having that green screen disease. You can rack up points for pars, birdies, finish position, and more. And even though you can't hit the course, DraftKings is giving you a chance to scratch the competitive itch and do your thing. So download the DraftKings app now and use code Tour Junkies during sign-up. This week, DraftKings is putting you into action with a free shot at a $1 million top prize. That's code Tour Junkies, and you can get a free shot at the $1 million top prize only at DraftKings. The minimum is a $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Of course, that's where we go, man. That's where we play all of our DFS is DraftKings. Love those guys over there. They take good care of us. And it's the best user experience, fan experience for golf. And the Millie Maker is the biggest contest in golf. So you get a free entry, give it a shot. I don't know if we've ever had a Millie Maker winner off of a free entry. You could be the first one. So promo code Tour Junkies. All right, Pat, you ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's go.
9K and above range. Let's start it with the betting favorite, the thick golfer of the year, Bryson Douche Lord DeChambeau. I got to be honest. When the pricing came out and he was at 11-2, I was a little surprised. I thought he would be a little higher, honestly. Now we do know that DraftKings typically during weeks like this, where there's a lot of new money, a lot of public money that don't play golf a lot coming in, they tend to soften the pricing a little bit. But I expected him to be in that 11.5 range, 11.6. So I think you're getting a little discount on Bryson. But what are we going to do with him, man? I mean, obviously what he's doing right now is no secret. Won the U.S. Open handily on a very difficult golf course. But, this will be his 4th Masters as a professional, I believe. Best finish was a T21. Last year finished T29 after having a first-round lead. Finished T38 the year before that. What are we going to do? What do you think? I do think Bryson's going to be chalky. I think he could be 30%. I really believe he could get up over that. He is one of these guys. I'll tell you, in this range, I think Bryson and DJ are probably the 2 most chalky players. DJ's price is very, very good at 10K. I think Xander is going to – I think those 3 are your automatic chalk up here. And I also think Bubba Watson has a chance to be pretty chalky. At 9K, considering how good he's playing, 2-time Masters champ, I think those are the 4 names that I look here and go, okay, there's your chalk. But I think Bryson is the chalkiest. So I think the first decision that most people are going to want to know are going to have to think through in building lineups is, am I playing Bryson or am I not? And I think it should be you play Bryson, you go hard in the paint. If he's 30% owned, projected on Wednesday night, I think you play him at 60%, 50% in your lineups. If you're doing 10 lineups, you put him in 5. I think you go overweight on the field or you completely fade. You play him in 0. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think that is what you do. And for me, I'm going to have some Bryson ownership. I just think there's no way I'm not going to.
Okay, so that means are you going to double the –
But I'm not going to – I think I will play a little bit of them. But the gambler part of me,
Why would you play a little bit? Why would you play less than what he's owned? That doesn't make sense.
Because I want to have like a little teeny piece of ownership, just a little teeny piece. But in the long run, for most of my lineups, I want to fade him. I do, because I have this feeling that he's gonna totally blow up when everybody thinks he's a favorite. He actually doesn't have great course history here when you consider what he's done. I mean, his best finish is 21st.
I just said that. You checked out. You've already checked out. We're one name into the thing, and you've already checked out.
Well, I was trying to think about how I was going to react to what you were saying, but I do think you can have a small piece and still be a fader of Bryson. I don't necessarily think you just go all in 0% or all in 100%, or not 100% or 50 or 60%. You can have a little small piece if you want.
I just don't think that's the. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think that's.
I don't think it's
right
an all or nothing deal.
Here.
I think that's too. I don't think it's that cut and dry that it's.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think I'm gonna do?
I think you're gonna go all in, like you're gonna go 50 or 60% ownership as well. Because I think you're gonna take, and I think you should do this. You take out your personal feelings about somebody. If you didn't like Patrick Reed the year he won, you screwed yourself.
I had Patrick Reed that year. We hit him at 50-1.
So,
okay.
I mean, you can't just not take a guy because you don't like him. So I think your narrative has been, and you've been on these rants for weeks and weeks and weeks about Bryson DeChambeau. Your whole narrative for this week is going to be, I'm going all in on Bryson DeChambeau in my lineup. So that's just the way I think you're going to do. But for me, I want to gamble a little bit, and I want to go the other way, because if he's going to take all that ownership, then somebody in this range, there's going to be a gap. You're going to be able to find somebody in this range that's going to be able to really hit if you happen to fade Bryson and he plays like crap, or maybe he makes the cut but only finishes like T30 or something like that. So I think because of all that, that's the main reason I really want to fade him, is that I'm going to find a gap somewhere in here in this 9K range, whether it's a guy like Jon Rahm, who is not being talked about at all, really. I'm interested to see what his ownership's going to be, like a Rory who hasn't been in good form. Brooks, those are guys right there that are all probably going to get lower ownership than they typically would, because Bryson's going to take some of that ownership his way. So that's the way I'm kind of thinking about it right now, as we sit here on Saturday.
Okay, you're right. I am trying to take the emotional side of hating Bryson out of it, and I don't want to see Bryson win a green jacket. I just don't. If I end up going with Bryson, I will say I'm an undecided voter right now on Bryson. If I had to decide today, I'm going to go overweight and play him. And I think overweight is a fitting term for Bryson. And if he were 30% or more, I would almost double it and play that. I'm not betting him because I don't bet outrights that short. I don't bet favorites in golf. I'm not going to bet him. No. If you're playing like pool play or something, you're picking out of columns and you're doing a big pool somewhere, I might fade him there. But in DFS, the scoring I think is going to be key, because I got a text from a local Augusta boy, pretty close to a couple members at Augusta, that Bryson played. We know Bryson played Augusta a couple weeks ago. He was here. He hit a gap wedge into 13. He hit 6-iron into number 2. He hit a gap wedge into 18, and he drove the green on 3 with less than driver. Was the story from the other week. And now, you're going to hear stuff like that. We've been talking about Bryson breaking Augusta for a couple months now. But when I think about the possibility of Bryson having, at the longest a 6-iron into all of these par 5s, that is a lot of strokes that he's going to have to bleed somewhere else to not make up the value in DraftKings that rewards birdies and eagles. So I think, if he finishes 10th, he's still going to be a top 5 DK points scorer. I think he's going to be in the winning lineup of a lot of GPPs, even if he doesn't win, because he's going to score so many points. So that, I think if I'm going to play him, if I'm going to do anything with Bryson, it's going to be play him in DFS, because I'm not going to bet him or do anything else. So I think I want to have him. I lean that way right now.
But can't Rory have some of those numbers into the pins? Can't DJ have some of those numbers? Can't Brooks have some of those numbers?
I don't know that we've seen Rory, DJ, and Brooks with gap wedge into 13. I just don't think we've seen that. I don't think we've seen that. I mean, I
don't see how he's going to have gap wedge into 13. I really don't.
I don't know. I'm just the speculation is all over the place for sure. Maybe
the tees being back where they are, you can't cut the corner anymore on 13. If you get back on that tee, that it's so far back there with the tree line on your left, you can't cut the corner unless you can move the ball like a bubble.
What are you going to do if he cuts the corner? What are you prepared to do if he cuts the corner this week? Because I don't.
If he cuts the corner, I will eat my Masters course breakdown. This piece of paper.
Yes.
I mean that's what I'll do. That on the next show. I will eat this thing now, not whole. I might cut it up into bits and eat it throughout the show. Okay. Maybe put it in my beer or something. Okay. But I will eat the course breakdown.
Okay. Yeah, I think Bryson's gonna. I think he's gonna do a lot of what people have talked about him doing. I don't think this is gonna be fake news. So there you go. All right.
I'm not saying it's all fake news. I'm giving you one example of something I don't think is gonna happen.
Okay. Other names. I have a fade in here that I feel pretty confident about, and probably would still fade despite ownership. And that's the young guy, the first-timer, Collin Morikawa. I'm going to fade the young man despite him winning the PGA Championship just a couple months ago. Doesn't check a lot of boxes off the tee. I mean, he's accurate. He's very accurate for sure. He's not a long hitter by any means. He's 57th in this field over the last 24 rounds in driving distance. And this is a short field, and he's 57th. Doesn't really eat up the par fives too well either. He's in the probably bottom half of par 5 scoring, or bottom 40% par 5 scoring here as well. And just his form is still very interesting. Morikawa is a tough cookie. I mean, he wins the workday on a tough course, Jack's Place, but it was a little easier at that point. Wins the workday, wins the PGA, 6th at the Tour Championship, but then he's like, miscut at the Travelers, miscut at the Northern Trust, miscut at the U.S. Open, missed the cut at the Shriners, 50th at the Zozo. Like, what are we doing with Collin Morikawa? It's just a little – I can't quite nail him down. It's the putter kind of gives him troubles from time to time, and it seems tough to predict when the putter is going to work and when it's not. So for the first-timer, I think he's an easy fade for me at 9,500. There are a lot of first-timers in this field, and most of them – all of them, a way better value than Collin Morikawa at 9,500. So from a value standpoint and just, upside standpoint, and I think has a low floor for a lot of first timers. Like, who would you rather bet your life on to make the cut as a first timer in this field in these conditions right now? Matt Wolff, Sung J M, or Collin Morikawa? And for me, I would take M and Matt Wolff over Morikawa to make the cut. Pretty much every time. So that's my fade.
Agree. I would agree to that. Although I love how he hits his irons, which is
great iron player. Yeah.
You got phenomenal iron player. It's hard to go against that, but I don't hate that play. I actually will fade as we sit here on Saturday, right below him at 9,400, Terrell Hatton. Yes, I know he's he's coming in great form. I get it. I hear you. Matter of fact, I think when he was like 50 or 60 to 1 a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I may have already put a bet on him. I don't know. And so I probably have Hatton shares out there as far as bets are concerned. But as far as DFS, I think I'm going to fade him. Doesn't have very good course history here. Best finish is T44 back in 2018. So I think despite the form, and we'll see where his ownership is, Hatton right now looks like a fade candidate for me.
Oh, Pat, before we talk about our cash plays in this range and other tournament plays, I forgot. We're doing a Masters contest. We do one every year. Masters contest. Pew, 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 big flashing lights and all that stuff. Woo! Masters contest this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. We have access to the Masters online patron shop, and we've already done some shopping. We're excited, okay? We bought some Masters T-shirts. They say Masters 2020 Augusta National Golf Club on them. We bought some Masters pin flags, and we also have bought a couple of tailor-made Tour Spider putters. A couple of those. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put it on the screen here. This is a real hack job here. A couple of these bad boys, these hitters, we've bought some of those. We want to give away 2 of these prize packs where you get a T-shirt, you get a 2020 Masters pin flag, 2020 Masters T-shirt, and your very own tailor-made black Spider Tour putter. So we're going to give away 2 sets of those. Here's how you do it. All you got to do is become an annual member in the Nut Hut. Now, the Nut Hut is our online Tour Junkies member chat room. It's over on Discord. It's fantastic. It's 24/7 Discord chat where we talk about PGA DFS and betting on golf and all that. Golf DFS, golf betting, all that kind of stuff. We've had the Nut Hut open since I think late February. It's been incredible. Since the restart in January, over $3 million have been won by Nut Hut members. We had a Nut Hut member, Matthew Moore, won the Millie Maker. I believe it was at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Won $1 million in 1 week on DraftKings. Nut Hut member, super smart guy. We have so many smart players, sharp bettors in the Nut Hut right now, and it's a great place that we go and share information. We have a lot of laughs. It's a lot of fun. Somebody is in there chatting it up 24/7 in the Discord channel. Here's how you join. You go to tourjunkies.com. You click on Golby's Nut Hut, okay? You'll see the sign up there. Now, we're giving these away to anyone who is already a $90 a year annual member, or you sign up for a brand new annual membership, $90 a year. That's it, $90 a year, and you're a member for the year. Or if you're currently a monthly member at $10 a month and you up your subscription to $90 a year, we will put all of those names in a hat and we will draw live on Thursday or Friday and pick 2 winners to win the T-shirt, the flag, and the putter. So to win those things, again, sign up for the Nut Hut membership. Now, along with the Nut Hut membership, this is like we're losing money here. Along with the Nut Hut membership and the access to the chat, you get 20% off of anything that you buy in the Tour Junkies shop for as long as you're a member. 20% off your whole order for as long as you're a member. All kind of stuff. You get first access to events that we do. You get extra promo codes for sponsored companies and things like that to give you a little extra discount. It's awesome. I love the community here. It's been fantastic, and we're pumped about it. And we want more annual members. We want to know that people are going to lock in. So get that annual membership right now. Get it before they tee off on Thursday. We're going to have a drawing. And you could also, along with all of that, win yourself a 2020 Masters T-shirt, flag, and a tailor-made putter. So go sign up right now on tourjunkies.com. Click on Golby's Nut Hut and sign up and join us in the Discord chat. We'll be doing that live chat on Wednesday night. Okay, live chat Wednesday night for a couple hours. Me, Pat, Chalk Bomb Ben. It's going to be hot. It's going to be possibly drunk, a drunk conversation, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And every week we get caddy info, player info from the course, and we only share it exclusively in the Nut Hut. So there you go. That's my Nut Hut plug. Pat, let's get back into this. I had to get that out of the way. I forgot about it.
Good stuff. That's a good package right there. I want that
any
package.
More? Okay, cash plays. My cash play here, cash lock in the top tier is Xander. Love the way Xander's playing. Runner up at the Masters last year. Good putter on bent grass. Eats up par fives, and his form right now is pretty good. With a runner up at the CJ Cup, runner up at Eastlake, 5th place at the U.S. Open. Loving Xander, and the value at 9,800 is just too good. Now, also love Xander in tournaments, but I do think, like I said, I think Bryson, DJ, and Xander are your chalkiest plays in this range. But I would play him in cash for sure. I'd lock him in and start my lineups with Xander in cash.
Yeah, I love Xander this week. I think if you're going to bet as well, he's one of the shortest guys that I like. If I'm looking at cash, though, I think, and Charles mentioned this guy, and he's not one of the longest players on tour, but Webb Simpson, I like him at 9,300. Look, he's played solid here. He was T5 last year, T20 back in 2018. He's just – the way he's played lately, though, he's been so good, especially, when you look at just his iron play, everything else. I mean, the guy is just a solid player. And so if you're looking for just that kind of cash lock, you're saving yourself some money by getting them down there at 9,300 in this over 9K range. I think Webb is a good cash play. So even though he could have some chalk, I don't even know. He could be GPP play as well. So.
Yeah, actually, so in terms of GPP plays, let's get to there. Any other guys that are popping for us? Webb was one I kind of wrote down. You mentioned, Charles mentioned him. He does have a pretty good record here despite not being one of the longest guys out there. But Webb's added some length over the last few years. So he's not like he's short. He's not short anymore. He's just not. But he's just such a good ball striker, and the short game, as Charles mentioned, is absolutely tremendous. Yeah, I think a name up top that you're probably looking at is Rory. It feels like Rory is going to be one up here that's not going to be looked at a whole lot. You know, I think Bryson, DJ are going to go 1 and 2. JT and Xander are going to kind of be 3, 4. And then I feel like Rahm, you know, is going to be 5. And I feel like Rory is going to be like Rory and Brooks are going to be the 2 guys up here that I think are going to get overlooked a little bit. And, you know, we know Charles loves Rory. He mentioned that. But, you know, his irons haven't been fantastic, but off the tee, there's just not many better still than Rory McIlroy. And obviously the form at Augusta is pretty impeccable. Now, last year, one of his worst years in a long time, finished T21 at Augusta. But 10-2, the price tag for Rory is good. You know, you got to hope he eats up on the par 5s like he normally does. I think he's one I'm going to watch for sure in terms of tournaments. Patrick Cantlay is another one who, you know, if you remember, had the lead at one point late. I think after he played 16 on Sunday last year, had the lead, ended up finishing 9th. But, you know, we just saw him win last week or a couple weeks ago at the Zozo. So the form kind of coming around. He fits all those trends that we talked about earlier in the show. Putts best on bent grass. You know, I think Cantlay's one to watch. And then for me, Reed. I mean, Reed is always going to be a guy that I look at the Masters. I picked him the year he won, but he just plays so well here. The short game is impeccable. You know, he does well on par 5s. He's second in this field. Can you believe that? Like, he's 43rd in driving distance in this field over the last 24 rounds, but he's second in par 5 scoring in this entire field. So I think Reed is one to watch at 9,200 for sure. And then finally, I'm going to keep an eye out on Tiger, because I think a lot of people are going to fade Tiger. The form has not been great. The drivers let him down. His irons have actually still been pretty good. Over the last 24 rounds, he's still 21st in the field in strokes gained approach. So the irons have still been pretty good. It's really been the driver. The short game hasn't been great. That's what's kind of let him down. But coming off the defending champion, the defending champ here at Augusta National for the Masters this year, listen, I just the value down here at 9,100, the edge that Tiger has, the knowledge that he has about around Augusta is too good for me to pass up. If he's 7-8% owned in some of these contests, now he's obviously going to be chalkier in the Millie Maker. It's a more public contest, but for like your high dollar single entry contest, stuff like that, I could see him being sub 7-8%. And I think that's interesting. I think that's a time where I'm going to start kind of looking at Tiger. So that's it for me. Yeah.
Well, we can, if we need to, I can add Bubba, and we could successfully have mentioned every name in here. But I mean,
every name in here is worth a conversation. But
that's what I agree. We're not like hammering down our go-tos here. But I did mention Bubba, so I'm going to mention. I like Bubba. I mean, he's in good form. Finished T4 at the Zozo, T7 at the CJ Cup. He's going to have lower ownership this week, I believe, at 9,000. I think, with just the way he's played this course, we obviously know he's got a great history here with 2 wins. I like Bubba going into this week, and I think he'll be an interesting GPP play. I was with you though on Reed. I thought you were going to kind of skip over him, and I was going to get to talk about him. But other than that, I mean, again, we'll just have to see where ownership is. But I still think you got to look at Rahm. I really do.
Okay. Hey, speaking of Reed and Bryson, we asked for some listener voicemails, and we got a couple we're going to share on the show today. Going to get into the first one right here. This is real quick. Our boy Stevie T. I don't know who he is, but he goes by Stevie T. Sounds like it could be a potential drug dealer, something like that. Anyway, Stevie T has a question, kind of a hypothetical, if you will, for me and you, Pat, that involves Patrick Reed and Bryson DeChambeau. So let's take a quick listen to Stevie T, see what he's got to say.
What's up, fellas? It's your boy, Stevie T. So I had a question about Augusta for you guys. My question is, how much of an advantage do you think lefties really have? Like when you listen to Golf Channel or Brendo Chambly, he's always talking about like how lefties have advantages and stuff like that. How real is that hype? Also, I have another question. How much would somebody have to pay you if Bryson or Patrick Reed were leading the Masters on a Sunday on 12 or 16 right before they hit the ball to yell shank? Shank! How much money would somebody have to pay you? Or yell something like, to Bryson, big muscles, needles, dick. Or Patrick Reed, Justine looks like a man. Or, something like that. How much money would somebody have to pay you to do that? Thanks, fellas. Have a good week at the Masters, and hope you get some green screens.
Okay, there you go. So Stevie T wants to know what amount of money we would have to be paid, Pat, if on a Sunday, late on a Sunday, we would yell something as like I envision Bryson or Reed top of the backswing, or probably like a nearing the top of the backswing, you yell. And, his examples were shank or needle dick Bryson, or I thought this one was funny, Justine looks like a man to Patrick Reed. How much money would we have to be paid to do that? I'll start with you.
Okay, well, that depends on some circumstances here. All right, so I need to know, like, whose badges do I have? Okay, do I have a family member's badge? Or do I have just some random one that I bought? Because if I have some random one that I bought, I'm more likely to do it for less money.
You're going to stick it to that person?
Yeah. If I have – I'm sorry, to that person, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Let's just say I have a family badge. You're going to have to get into the 3 to 4 million range.
3 to 4 million? Come on.
Because I know,
come on, man. That's
for my dad, I know how much those badges mean to him. I'm going to need to at least provide some money for him to be able to buy badges every year so that he has them, and then to make him comfortably safe in retirement. So a lot of that money is going to have to go to my dad. And then on top of it, because you're going to get it's going to be years, or I may never be able to get into the Masters ever again. So you're going to have to pay me, like, right now, a pretty good chunk of change to do something like that down the stretch on Sunday. That's just the way I think about it.
I envision this happening this way. You are going to get immediately escorted out of there. You are going to get your picture taken. And you are going to, now you are going to need to have had a lot of alcohol before this. And you're going to need to have a stack of green cups in your hand. You're going to have that green hand disease, so that you can at minimum just say, listen, I'm sorry I was drunk. This wasn't something premeditated. I was drunk. I'm a terrible person. Please forgive me. And maybe the Augusta National bans you for like 10 years, and your picture
that's
somewhere.
That's best case scenario.
That's best case scenario. They may ban you for life. And at that point, you got to get real creative if you ever want to go back in there. That's what you risk. If it's your family's badges or some stranger's badges, it doesn't matter. You still have to plan. Whenever you accept whatever dollar amount you're willing to accept, you have to plan on paying off that side. I mean, if you bought somebody's off the street, you're going to have to plan on giving them. They're going to sue you. They're going to take you to court. They're going to sue you. So you got to have money for that, number one. And I know scenarios where this has happened. Not where people have yelled something like that, but where someone gave a badge to a friend or sold it to somebody and they got kicked out, they lost badges, then they turn around and sued them. So you gotta plan for that for sure. But I have a hard time, Pat, saying $3 or $4 million. You have to think about this. If I presented to you right now a bag of money, $1 million, just $1 million, and you'd have to give your dad, if your dad's old. I mean, your dad's an old man. And when he dies, it's not like those badges get to stay in the family. They're gone. So the clock is ticking on how many Masters, you guys got left, right?
Well, that's not true. That's not true. When he dies, they go to my mom. So
okay. Well, I mean, she's not a spring chicken. I love her, Miss Marie. She's a lovely lady, but she's no spring. We're not talking about your parents in your 40s or 50s here that are going to be, going to the Masters for another 30 years.
We could still be talking 10 or 15 more years, which Masters tickets, let's start running some numbers. They cost, 2 tickets could cost, like, with inflation, $10,000 in the next few years. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're at least at a bottom level of $1 million. I think that's the floor. That's like my floor asking price.
So I don't have the privileged family badges situation to run up against. So basically all I'm worried about is paying off whoever sues me for this, which is probably going to be a couple $100,000. I think I would do it. I think I could do it for a cool $1 million. If you gave me $1 million, I'd do it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely choose to go with something around Bryson. I don't know if it'd be Needle Dick, but I would rather say something to Bryson. I hate him more.
Here's what we've learned from this whole discussion is that if you're going to ask somebody to do this under this scenario, do not ask anybody that's from Augusta, that has ties to Augusta, that knows what it's like in Augusta.
Yeah.
Ask somebody who's only going to go there once and doesn't even care and will do it, on Sunday. And then, you can probably get it you can get it for a lot cheaper if you do it that way.
It would be a lot of fun if I were like a super wealthy person, like just bajillionaire person, it'd be a lot of fun to like seriously try to make this happen. Like go find somebody that would do this for whatever amount of money and just go watch it happen and know that you did that. That'd be pretty fun. Anyway, good question, Stevie T. Thanks for the listener voicemail.
This is a gentleman's game, DB.
All right, talk about the 8K range, Pat. I'll let you kind of start here. Who do you think, who's your fade, cash play? Let's start with those.
All right, well, I'll start with cash, and this is a guy that I know that you're probably going to love as well, and that's Hideki. I think the price is, when you get in a field like this for the Masters, you're going to have some guys that are going to be in this 8K range that you think should be in the 9K range, but they can't all be in the 9K range.
Yeah.
And I think Hideki makes a whole lot of sense here. He's been in decent form, but you look at, the history here has been, pretty good. He's made his last 5 straight cuts. He had 3 straight top 15 finishes up to 2017, 19th and 18 in 2018, and then T32 last year. Has gained over 36 strokes over the last 5 years. So I think that Hideki makes a whole lot of sense. I'll play him in cash. I'll probably play him in GPPs. I like him in both. So Hideki would be a guy that I'll talk about as far as a cash play is concerned. As far as a fade for me, I think Jordan's the easy fade, so I'm not even going to talk about him. Actually, I'm shocked that he's even in the 8K range. I guess they're giving a whole lot of credit for the course history.
Yeah.
But outside
Poor
of that,
Jordan. And how about, this week at Houston, he comes out, he's like 3 under through the first 9 holes or so, and you're like, oh, wow, here he is. And then he just bombs, misses the cut by 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I think originally I would have thought about having Adam Scott as a fade, but the way we've kind of seen him play this past week.
Playing good right now, yeah.
He just hasn't played a whole lot since the restart, so we don't know a whole lot about him. So I do think you could get some good ownership leverage with him. So if I'm going to pinpoint a fade candidate outside of Jordan Spieth for me, and as much as this pains me to say, it is going to be Mr. Hair, beautiful hair, Tommy Fleetwood.
Mr. Hair?
Mr. Hair. What's his nickname?
What?
Doesn't he have a nickname with his hair? Flocks of hair.
I always think he looks like a Cocker Spaniel, but I don't know.
Flock of seagulls. You ever heard of Flock of Seagulls?
Yeah, I have.
Anyway.
Okay.
Fleetwood at 8,600, just not a huge fan. We haven't seen him play all that great lately. Doesn't have a
form's
great
pretty bad
here. So I'll say Fleetwood.
Okay.
You go.
Well, I took the easy route with the Spieth fade. I think you're a sucker if you want to play Spieth. Don't care about his history here. You just got to be in better form than what he is right now. He's not gonna. I don't see it. But I guess a little more bold fade for me. I'll give this out is I don't even know how bold this is Jason Day. And Day's playing good right now in Houston. But, we saw him withdraw a few weeks ago at the CJ Cup, back injury or neck injury again. I think the thing with Jason Day is you're never going to know when it's going to pop up. You're just not. And it could be fine one week and bad the next, then fine the next. I think it's just his issues are his issues, and they seem to be unpredictable and very variable week to week. So it doesn't feel like the safest play, and I'm sure he's going to be lower owned, which I don't know. Maybe there's your leverage, but obviously a great record at Augusta, hits it a long way, great putter, great short game. But he's not checking a lot of boxes recently. The form is not great. 60th at the Zozo, miscut at the Shriners, 38th at the U.S. Open, 64th at the BMW. Now, he does look like, as of now, he might turn in a decent finish at Houston. But so maybe if he finds a little something this week, I think that's fine. But it still feels like a risk considering he just withdrew from a tournament 2 tournaments ago for him. I feel like that's kind of a risk. My cash play is Tony Finau. I freaking love Tony Finau this week and in this event. I've already bet on him. He was at 25-1. I've already put a bet down on him there. I think and listen, people can say you're crazy for thinking Tony Finau's got win equity, and I know he hasn't won. I know he hasn't done it, and he has had so many chances, and he has looked pretty weak on a Sunday. But I think the more of those he has, the more scar tissue he builds up. He may not be a killer mentality. He may not have that like killer Patrick Reed kind of mentality, but there are plenty of guys on the PGA Tour that don't and still win. And I think Tony Finau is good enough to win the Masters. I think he has the perfect course profile or course fit. His game is perfect for Augusta. He's proven that already, and just a couple of times out, he's finished 10th and 5th. 2 times he's played the Masters and he finished 10th and 5th. So, I love Finau here. I really do. And he's also playing well in Houston right now. So my favorite plays in this range are going to be Finau and Hideki. You knew Hideki was coming. Those are my favorite plays in tournaments. I do think Hideki is going to be your lower owned player out of those 2. But I think both are going to come in at decently high ownerships. You can't argue with Hideki's record here for sure. And the ball striking, it feels like the floor is good for him. And I think your potential chalk plays here are going to be Finau, Decky, and Adam Scott. I think Adam Scott's going to be bumped up in ownership after this week if he continues to do well in Houston and people see that. I think that's going to be what happens with old Adam Scott. But my favorite plays in this range are for sure Finau and Decky. Anybody else you want to mention?
No, I don't. I like the Finau play. I think I can't really argue with you there. So, it's a interesting range. There's not a whole lot of guys here, so you could kind of just plant your flag on 1 or 2 and be done with it.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for leverage in here, though. That's for sure. I mean, I think Paul Casey, Spieth, Day, Garcia, Wolf as a first timer, maybe Fleetwood's going to be low. There's definitely going to be some guys in here that come Wednesday night you're going to be looking at going, well, they're low owned. They're projected to be really low owned. Nobody's talking about them. And I think in that scenario, you kind of, if that scenario were here, I would lean guys like Paul Casey. I would lean Sergio. Those are kind of some names if I were just really trying to get some low ownership out of this particular price range come Wednesday night. If those guys do in fact project to be low owned, those are kind of some names I'd look at. But I'm avoiding Jordan Spieth no matter what. Probably going to avoid Tommy Fleetwood no matter what. And it's going to take a lot for me to play Jason Day. I'm going to have to hear some press conferences from Jason Day about how good he feels, about how his neck was one thing, but now he feels a little better. I'm going to need something else out of him before I hit him. So,
see, I'm a little opposite of you on Jason Day. I think he's a pretty good. He could be a decent play, and we'll see where the ownership is. But we've already seen, just yesterday, if you were looking at sportsbooks odds, he was at 50-1. He is down to 33-1 on the DraftKings sportsbook. So which is interesting because he's playing well.
Full disclosure, I bet him yesterday. You know that. I did bet him. So I guess,
didn't mention that, but yeah.
But I guess my thought process is, we talked about how 6 of 6 lineups are going to be a major thing. You're going to have more 6 of 6 lineups this week than you normally see. And I just don't love the risk of him withdrawing or not feeling 100% and like having to gut it out. I don't love that in DFS. I don't want to take that risk when there's already going to be so many 6 of 6 lineups. I don't. If you have 5 of 6, you're done. I mean, you are done unless a ton of chalk bites the dust. So in DFS, I don't want to play him for that reason. But if it's betting him at 50 to 1 and I want to throw, $20 on him or $50 on him, and then that way, if he comes out and wins, I'm fine. If he withdraws, I'm out $20, $50. Like, I don't care, So
yeah, no, I hear you. Okay.
And I did that after seeing him play well at the Houston yesterday. On Friday, I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe the form's coming around, but we'll see. But he's one of those guys, we know this. Like, at the drop of a hat, he's laying on the ground with vertigo, or his neck is killing him, or God knows what. So there's always that.
It's a smart play too. When you look at him, you see him at a number of 50 to 1. I could have told you, after you grabbed him at 50 to 1 on Friday, and what we saw his play like, that he was going to be shorter on Saturday when the sports books woke up and changed their odds.
Yeah, I grabbed him like mid-round Friday. So, all right, let's talk the 7K range. A lot of names here, a lot of decisions to be made. This is where you can really get some ownership leverage in your lineups in the 7K range. All right, I'll start with my cash play is, who do you think? It's the first guy up there that I've been banging the drum for him since the restart, Louis Oosthuizen, the South African. Love Louis at 7,900. Great record at Augusta National. Should have won the Masters the year Bubba won it the first time, so should be a green jacket holder, but just got Bubba just took it. But great record here. Very familiar with Augusta and playing really, really well right now. Third at the U.S. Open, 25th at the BMW at Olympia Fields. Those are tough courses. 13th at the Northern Trust. Those are tough courses. I like how he could play. Augusta National. He scores well on par fives. Good short game. Love everything about Louis. Love him. And he's never really like super chalky. People don't love playing him. Even in this good run he's had, he's not cracked. The U.S. Open was the highest. He was 18%, but he's been like 8%, 6%, 12%, 14% on average in terms of DFS. That's where he's kind of been. So he's not super chalk. Maybe he is this week. I don't know. He has potential to be, but he's a cash play for me. I would play him in tournaments as well. And then my fade in this range is going to be Matt Fitzpatrick, who a lot of people like to play, but a lot of people ain't me. Got a decent record at Augusta. Makes cuts, decent record. I don't love the fact that this is going to play longer. It's going to play longer than normal. And it already plays long, and it's going to play longer than normal with the soft fairways. He's 66th in this field in driving distance over the last 24 rounds. The approach play has been middling. He hits a lot of fairways, which is good. Decent short game, but I'm just, I'm not seeing it with Fitzpatrick. He's another one similar to Morikawa, has like this boomer bust form, where it's like, okay, here's his last few events, 26th, 12th. Those are both no cut events. Missed cut at the U.S. Open, coming off of a 6th place finish at the BMW at Olympia Fields. But then right before the 6th place finish at Olympia Fields, he missed the cut at the Northern Trust and missed the cut at the PGA Championship. But then right before he missed those 2 cuts, he finished 6th at the St. Jude and 3rd at the Memorial. Like, it's just, he's going to miss cut or he's going to top 15. And I guess that makes him a good tournament play potentially, but I want guys with higher floors given the amount of 6 of 6 lineups. So Fitzpatrick is my fade. What say you?
I don't mind that. I was with you on the Oosthuizen as far as the cash play. I just think that of all the people in here, if I'm looking at cash specific lineups, he's the one that I'm going to go to and gravitate towards for all the reasons that you mentioned. Some of these other players that I do like, I think I'm not as comfortable. I don't have that warm. I'm on my home, at my home on my bed, feeling with some of these other guys that I am with Oosthuizen. So I think he will be a definite cash play. For me, I'm fading Phil Mickelson. I think the guy
he looks terrible.
He's great.
Right now.
He has a great history here. He loves playing in Augusta. He doesn't have much time to win majors, and I think that people like to point to this one as one of those that he can win every year, regardless of how he's playing and his age and whatever else. But we've seen him just be terrible off the tee. I think he was last in the field in strokes gained off the tee, missing the cut here at the Houston Open. I'm just not going to play him. And maybe that's too easy. Maybe that's a cop out like you did with Jordan Spieth in the 8K range. But Mickelson, for me, will certainly be a fade as well. If I'm looking at like just pinning down a good GPP play this week for me, and I'm looking near the top, first timer. And I think with 2020 being up here, this year, as crazy as it is, I think we could get a first time winner, and that's Scotty Scheffler. I like him. I think he's got the perfect game for this course. Obviously, he doesn't have a whole lot of experience here, but I'm okay with that. I think he can find it real quick. But look, the guy's just playing lights out, near the top of the field in par 5 scoring, off the tee. Obviously checks the box in driving distance. So I think Scotty Scheffler could be a good play here as a GPP at 7,800. Ownership will be interesting for him because he's been kind of a hot name, a guy that a lot of people have talked about the last, few weeks. I know he had the kind of COVID deal, but he's back now. So I like Scheffler. Near the bottom, and this is just a little bit of gut here, but Cam Smith, I think, is an interesting play for me.
Interesting.
Like.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been a great scrambler, top 10 in par 5 scoring, checks the box in approach and I mentioned scrambling already, but I think, and he's also a good putter traditionally on bent grass greens. I think he's interesting as well. So I will, he's one of the guys that I just kind of had a little star by in here.
Okay. Well, I think my favorite first-timer in this range, I'm going to get a little more value out of him, is at 7K, and that's Mr. Jason Kochrack.
Kochrack, I'm a fan of that. I am.
Yeah.
Just want some money off of him.
You hit him at 80-1 just a couple of weeks ago when he won the CJ Cup. Kind of broke the seal for old Kochrack. I don't think he's gonna win. But I do think this is a year. Just because we haven't seen first-timers win, we've definitely seen first-timers play great, in top 10, top 15. I think Jason Kochrack is a guy that could top 10 this year. A patronless Masters benefits him. He's as confident as he's probably ever been. If you look over the last 50 rounds, the only putting surface that he gains strokes on is bent, okay? And that's always his bugaboo, is gaining strokes on the putting greens. If he could gain strokes on Bermuda and POA, which you see more often as they, on the PGA Tour, he'd have more than his one win. But the bent grass greens are a thing that he is going to benefit from. And from a ball striking standpoint, if you just looked at the ball striking stats over the last 24 rounds or since the restart, if I only showed you the ball striking stats, you would think you're looking at Dustin Johnson, or maybe not Dustin, but like a Xander Schauffele or a Patrick Cantlay, or he's actually better than Cantlay in that area. I mean, he checks all the boxes. He's a bomber, scores on par 5s. I love the value that you're going to get with Jason Kochrack at 7K. Love Louis. I already talked about that. I think a name to watch down here is Ian Poulter. He did withdraw from the Houston Open, and I did a little research. He put out a video on Twitter that he was having some back issues. It's nothing major, but just cited, the back wasn't ready, and he wanted to stay home. Got a little more rest, got a little more physio, did some light work, trying to, going ahead and getting ready for the Masters. He didn't sound awful. It didn't sound like it's just a no-go, but I think it's something to pay attention to. Poulter has a great record at Augusta, always plays well at Augusta. For a 7K guy that you need to get through and make the cut, he's a name to watch. Listen to the press conferences, kind of watch him he's very active on social media, so he'll probably, tip you one way or the other on whether he feels like he's good enough to play. But I think 7K value is there for him. I think despite a bad performance at Houston, Lee Westwood is somebody I'm interested in watching. He's been playing really, really well, both on the European Tour and the PGA Tour, and his record at Augusta is phenomenal. So I think Westwood's one to watch at 7,200. And then I like Justin Rose at 7,700. I think I want to take a gamble on Justin Rose. Incredible record at Augusta with a couple runner-ups even in the last 5 years. He did miss the cut last year, which tanked a lot of people. and the recent form's been spotty as he's continued to work through equipment issues and changes and all the stuff that's going on. But he's as experienced as they come at Augusta. He's got an experienced caddy on the bag that's had many loops at Augusta. He knows this place really, really well. Still checks a lot of boxes in terms of par 5 scoring, distance. It's just, which Justin Rose are we going to get? Are we going to get, T25 at the Northern Trust, T17 at the Zozo of recent, or are we going to get miscut at the Wyndham Justin Rose? I don't know. So I think I think that's priced in. And I think his ownership's going to be a little low because of it. But talk about a guy who could, if he's on, could win this thing and has nearly won this thing down in this range. And I think Justin Rose is that guy.
Yeah, I don't mind Rose. I think he's kind of one of those guys that you just look at and want to take a little bit of a gamble on, and has a tremendous upside. So I'm okay with that.
All right, Pat, let's get down into the 6K range here. Talk through some names. We do have another listener voicemail coming that has to do with this 6K range. I was going to play it now, but I don't think I want to wait. Let's go through some picks and we'll play it at the end. Let's work through the 6K range. Let's just go through any name here. I mean, I don't really have necessarily a fade or a cash play in the 6K range, but there's a lot of names here that are interesting. In terms of chalk, I think the chalkiest names are potentially going to be Corey Connors, ball striker. This is his third Masters appearance. As of Saturday afternoon, playing okay at the Houston Open right now. I think he's potentially chalk, and I think Lanto Griffin, despite being a first-timer, is also potentially chalk considering how well he's been playing lately, and just kind of the nuts on that guy. I feel like is gonna be something people are gonna talk about is Lanto Griffin. And I say chalk. I mean, I don't think a lot of names in the 6K are gonna get over 15% or whatever. I don't think that's gonna happen. But I'm saying the more popular picks in this range. Now, I do kind of like Corey Connors here. We know his struggle is putting. We know the bent grass greens are as pure as they get, and he can putt those. Maybe that neutralizes his poor putting. If you look at his putting splits, it is his best surface by far, and he's one of the best ball strikers out there in terms of iron play. Solid off the tee. Missed a cut at his first Masters, finished 46th at the next one, so he's progressively getting a little better here. So I could see a top 20, top 15 for Corey Connors, and especially if he continues playing well here at the Houston Open. So I do like him. What are some other names up here you're liking, 6K range?
Well, I was surprised when you're talking about chalk because I don't necessarily think this guy's going to be chalk. And again, I agree, not a whole lot. Nobody's really that much of a chalk play anyway down in the 6K range. But Sebastian Munoz, to me, I think is interesting at 6,700. This is his first Masters as well, but he's coming in great recent form. You look at stats. I mean, he's checking the box in par 5 scoring, ball striking. He's good around the greens, top 30 in the field, 20th in approach. I think Munoz makes a whole lot of sense. He's one of those guys that I think could easily be in that 7K range if it wasn't for the fact that he's never played here before. So I like him here. A guy that's going to be interesting to me because we've seen him play well at the Houston Open, and we haven't seen him at all in the last few months. Francesco Molinari could be.
Yeah, how about Molinari making some waves in Houston? He's a gamble,
but the guy has a great track record here. I know, again, we haven't seen him in all that in a long time, but I don't think he's going to have that much ownership as well. I like seeing now. There's always a question in my mind of like, how much do you weigh how they played the week before a major, or especially this, for the Masters or whatever. He is one though that I kind of looked at and wondered, I wonder what his form's going to be like at the Houston Open. I just want, because we haven't seen him at all really, and he's playing pretty well. So
what's weird for him, I just looked at this. As of Saturday afternoon, he's actually, the thing that I don't like about him is he's actually not doing too well with his irons. He's losing strokes on approach right now. He's actually gaining strokes with the flat stick, which is not usually what happens for what was happening for Molinari. Let me look right now. As of recording this, he's through 12 holes in his third round. He's basically just under 0 on strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach. He's gaining. He's 5th in the field in strokes gained around the green and 8th in the field in putting as of more than halfway through his third round. I don't know. To me, the variable nature of that is a little concerning, just because the putting can go but if the irons are still kind of not great, I mean, we'll see what happens on Sunday. It will be interesting to see. I mean, he finished top 5 last year, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, he was right there until he kind of crapped the bed on 12.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's interesting. A guy near the bottom, South African Justin Harding, who finished T12 in his first. We talk about a guy who is in his first, Masters and finishes T12. I think Harding's an interesting play at 6,300. He's, a GPP play, obviously. We've seen him on the European Tour. Let's see. I got to go to – so he was 30th.
He hasn't been playing great this year, I don't think.
Well, let's see. He was 30th in his last start at the Scottish Open. You go back to September, where he was 11th at the Irish Open. He was 3rd at the I can't even pronounce it, Masters. He was 3rd there. So, I mean, he's had some good finishes for a guy. We're talking about a guy at 6,300 who's played, pretty well on the European Tour.
Yeah.
And so I think he could be worth a flyer. And he's shown some history here, that's been good. So,
yeah.
There are a lot of names in here that I think you can go on. I mean, there are also some that you just can't play at all, which you mentioned real early in the show, that I would just avoid altogether.
Well, I think a name that I said was going to be a little popular that I would fade is Lanto, actually. I think I'm out on Lanto. He has played well since the restart, but he is a first-timer here. The driving accuracy is a little shaky, and even despite the good finishes, he's not scoring on par fives very well. He's had some really strong putting weeks. I mean, he finished 11th at the Zozo, 7th at the CJ Cup, and in both of those tournaments, he gained over 6 shots putting. That's a lot. In fact, if you look over his PGA Tour career, he's only gained more than 6 shots putting once, and that's in 54 events. So, there's a lot of variability there with Lanto. So I don't love first-timer Lanto with, smoking hot putter down in this range. So if I were going to avoid one, I think he'd be one. But I'm looking into Eric Van Rooyen, the South African at 6,900, does hit it a long way, can take advantage of the par fives. And plays well in big events. I think has potential. I think his floor is pretty good for 6,900. It's all about the flat stick for Van Rooyen. Another guy that it's all about the flat stick is my boy Siwoo Kim. And I think Siwoo Kim could be a little chalky too, if I'm honest. I mean, he's been playing really well lately, and he's got back-to-back top 25s at the Masters. We'll see what we'll see what happens with him. What's he doing right now in Houston? I think he's not great in Houston. Let's see. Oh yeah, he missed the cut. He missed the cut on the number. I don't really care about that, honestly. His ball striking's been really, really good. He's a great scrambler. So I think Siwoo's one to watch. And then, I mean, what do we think about our boy CH3? We talked to Charles at the top of the show, appearing in his 12th Masters. And in his last 5 Masters, he's made 3 of 5 cuts. And when he's made the cut, he's finished 30th, 19th, and most recently 32nd. Now, recent form, not awesome. It's not terrible, but not awesome. He had a 34th at the Shriners, missed cut at Punta Cana, played the U.S. Open, finished 30th. BMW at Olympia Fields, 48th. 3rd place at the 3M Open. Those are kind of the highlights since the restart. But he's also missed a bunch of cuts. But here's a guy who does know Augusta National really, really well. Can bomb it, hits it a long way, can get these par fives. Would you rather have Justin Harding at 6,300 or Charles Howell at 6,400? I'm surprised.
Well, I think I do like Charles. As a matter of fact, bringing him up makes me think we should have asked him this question. And why didn't we ask him what he thinks about no fans for his play? Because he's a guy that comes into this tournament every year being from Augusta with a lot of pressure. A guy like Kiz is the same. Now, Kiz has been pretty solid here. He's made every cut that every start he's had, he's made the cut. Charles has been a little hit or miss, and I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself. So I think no fans might benefit him a little bit. I think he's coming in under the radar, not a whole lot of pressure. He's not getting out there with everybody hollering his name or wanting his attention or whatever that might know him or whatever it is. So I think that Charles with no fans is a better Charles for the Masters. So I do like that at 6,400. I think he's a good play.
I have one more name I want to talk about, and it's our buddy JT Poston. Aaron Fleener, our buddy Aaron Fleener, one of the best caddies on the PGA Tour, caddies for JT Poston. JT's appearing in his first Masters. Charles mentioned JT Poston when we asked him about a first-timer that he liked. He mentioned JT. He's at 6,300 on DraftKings. And if you look at the form, you go, ugh, I don't know. The trouble when JT's not playing well, it's usually his irons fall off a little bit. He's a fantastic putter. He's one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. And he has the ability to gain a ton of strokes on the putting surfaces, as he did a few weeks ago at the Sanderson when he finished third and gained 8.5 strokes putting. It's all about the iron play for JT. And if you look since the restart, the irons started pretty bad and stayed pretty bad until the Sanderson, where he finished third, and he gained 3.5 strokes. I'm looking at the Houston Open right now, and JT Poston is 5 under, and he's in 8th place as we're recording this. But his approach to the green numbers, he's gained over 4.5 shots with his irons and stands. That's good for 10th in the field with irons. And, of course, he's still putting amazing. He's gained over 4.5 strokes putting as well, good for 9th in the field. Watch out if JT arrives at Augusta hitting his irons well. If he's hitting his irons well, and we get reports from Fleener on Wednesday, hey, man, my boy's striping it right now. Even for a first-timer, I think JT Poston has top 20 upside. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to top 5 maybe a stretch in this field. Top 10 maybe a stretch in this field. But for a guy that you pay 6,300 for, if he can hit his irons well at Augusta, I think he's worth a look.
I don't mind that at all. I mean, I'm okay. I'm interested to hear get some comments from Fleener during the week. I have a feeling it's going to be a big week for Fleener as well. But anyway.
All right, let's take our last listener voicemail, Pat. We'll end on this. This came in from our buddy Brian Halverson, longtime listener, Nut Hut member as well. Appreciate you, Brian. Brian has a question for me, you, and I guess Ben, who's not here, but we'll go ahead and throw this out there. Let's take a listen to Brian Halverson.
Hello, this is Brian Halverson calling. My question about Augusta with the Masters would be if you guys formed a 3-man scramble team with Pat, DB, and Ben, and you entered the Masters as a single player. 1, what would your DK pricing be? What would be a fair DK price? And 2, would you be in your own player pool?
Okay, so great question. Creative question from Brian Halverson. If me and you and Chalk Bomb Ben, the third piece of the Tour Junkies puzzle, were a 3-man scramble team playing Augusta National in the Masters, where would we be priced on DraftKings? And would we put ourselves in our player pool on DraftKings? Pat, where do you think we would be priced?
We would definitely be in the 6K range. We'd be 100%. Near the bottom.
Yep.
I think we'd be in that 6,300 to 6,400 range where we just talked about Charles.
Okay.
I think actually, I don't know. I'll go with, because I don't think anybody really below 6,200 is worth a play. So, I don't know. I'll just stick with. I'll stick with. We'll go 6,400. I think that if it were me picking the player pool, I would not have us, because I know how my game has been lately. So I'd probably be like, I know this. We wouldn't need me except for maybe around the greens and putting. Correct. I've got a lot of experience putting on bent. If we were to look at the last 100 rounds, I'm pretty good on bent. Other than that, I don't know if you'd be taking many of my drives. You wouldn't be taking many of my approach shots. Maybe around the green, but other than that, that's where I would contribute. So I don't think I'd have us in the player pool.
I can for sure tell you that I wouldn't be I would not have us in the player pool. I would price us at, remember back in the day when DraftKings first started doing golf and there was a 5K range? Remember that? Like a 5,800? I would make us 5,900 or 6,000 even. That is where we would be. I can't begin to imagine, and I can't believe you even did this, pricing ourselves higher than Fred Couples at 6,100, who, I mean, just in the last 5 years has 2 top 20s here at Augusta National.
I was giving you and Ben a little more credit.
No, you cannot do that. First of all, this is a 70, how long, 100 golf course that we're walking for 4 days? Like, you walking this course for 4 days physically, I don't know is possible. So I think maybe by Sunday it'd be down to a 2-man scramble.
That's fake news, actually. I run 2 or 3 days a week, at least 3 miles. I may not look like it, so that's fake news. I can handle the course.
I also feel like if we did this, we would kill each other. So I think we'd be a man down. Just somebody would throw a club at somebody else. We're just not. We're not there. We're not good enough right now. We're not good. Our games are not good. If we were all like better than 5 handicaps, then I would say I would take us up a notch. But I mean, I'm an 8.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah.
You know, Ben's a 10. You're a 12. You know, and you guys aren't very long. I mean, Ben is the Ryan Armour of golf. You know, and I think we would need some length. We got to have length. You know, it'd be different if we were doing this on what's the course Brian Gay just won on. I mean, if it was Brian Gay's course, then I think we're priced up a little bit. We don't have to have the distance, but we got to have the distance here. And none of us are, you know, even though, you know, you're a good putter, like we're not that good. We're not going to make these putts. We're not going to make any putts out there. That's terrible. 5,900 is where we'd be.
Okay.
Thanks for calling, Brian. Masters DFS show 2020 in the books. Be sure and check out the betting show as well. Be sure check out the YouTube page. We got some new content going up on the YouTube channel as well. Join the Nut Hut. Get in on the Masters contest. Join the Nut Hut for $90. Enter to win. You know, the prize pack, the Masters prize pack, and the TaylorMade putter. Pat, enjoying it, man. Looking forward to a big week. It's a much-needed reprieve that we get the Masters after all this election bullshit. Hate that we can't have patrons and we can't be there, but it's better than nothing. It's better than the Houston Open, you know?
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. It's weird, but it's awesome. So it should be a great week, and looking forward to all the content that we're putting out there. Real excited about the sommelier article this week. I think it's going to be some good stuff. So.
I'm excited about that too. All right, may your screens be green for the Masters. See ya. Oh!